Hi everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of August 10th, 2020. This horoscope is brought to you by 1millionnights.com. We have a very active and extremely powerful, action-oriented sky playing out all throughout the week, but this is one of those moments when the intensity and power of the sky is going to be rather aggressive. The energy of fear, shocks, unexpected surprises, confusion, and I'm really sorry to say this, but there is also an energy of deception, manipulation, psychological warfare, which is getting stronger and stronger. But the main problem is that energy of manipulation, deception has also very powerful counter energy in the sky, where Mars is going to meet in his home sign of Aries, which means that it is extremely powerful, and since it is in shadow, this is where it embodies the warrior, but it's not the diligent warrior, but rather the one who acts out of sheer instinct. So Mars is going to meet his sister, the planetoid Eris, goddess of discord, the female awakener, the female revolutionary, in Mars' home sign of Aries, and then both of these planets are going to square Pluto in Capricorn, which is the representative of centralized power, the influence, control, and basically power that governments, social structures, etc. have over all of us. So this is an extremely violent energy which speaks about revolution, protests, uprising. Mars in Aries is definitely the power and the sovereignty of the individual, who is definitely not willing to surrender any of its power, independence, authority over its own life. So things are going to get very heated, very confusing, very violent, and for other people, extremely fearful. Now this energy is going to intensify towards the very end of the week, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a good dose of squares, as in conversations of maximum tension, even at the beginning of the week. And if all of the squares wasn't enough, at the very end of the week, on Sunday, Uranus stands still in the sky and prepares to go retrograde the next day. When a planet is stationary, its symbolism is greatly amplified, because that means that it's that much closer to our planet, so its influence is emphasized on. And Uranus is in the Earth sign of Taurus, which represents the physical Earth, as in the crust of the Earth, the tectonic plates. So this increases the danger of accidents, of earthquakes, really violent and unusual weather phenomenon, natural calamities, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis. But at the same time, perhaps this is one of those moments when it's not really the physical expression of Uranus which is the biggest danger, but rather its symbolism starts to turn inwards, and that represents that all of us are going to be revolutionaries, rebels, our values, principles, everything that we hold dear and valuable in our lives, may they be physical elements like, money, values, riches, material goods, but most importantly, since it turns inwards, now it is the love that we have for everything in our lives, Taurus, everything that takes away the small and big pleasures of life. Now we are going to rebel against all the limitations, because it will be our sacred duty to protect the symbolism of Taurus, what it means for us individually. But of course, since at this time Mars has already activated Eris, the female awakener, whose symbolism is rather similar to that of Uranus retrograde, well, it's going to be a time of uprisings, it's going to be a time where individuals are going to challenge everything and everyone that stand against them and their liberty. So spirits are going to rise sky high at this time. And even before I get into the analysis of all these aspects, the wisest choice is always to stand from a place of balance, to apply your rationality, your logic and life experience before making any decision, for example, to go out and protest or take place in the violence, because you have to ask yourself, are you really going to accomplish anything by fueling and promoting violence? Yes, absolutely, there are going to be people who embody this role, who embody the role of the protester, of the revolutionary, of the warrior, or of the criminal, for example. And naturally, for these people, this celestial invitation is going to be irresistible. But of course, there are other people who don't really embody this archetype, who only act on outer stimulation, or could it be inner stimulation? But it is exactly those people who don't embody this archetype for whom it would be a really unwise choice to go out and do what is not natural for them, because this is one of those moments when greatly stepping out of your normality and comfort zone is going to be risky, and there is a true danger of physical risk and danger to it, hazard. So please embody wisdom, embody diligence, and basically know yourself profoundly, know what is your role and your calling and what isn't, and it doesn't matter how dire or severe the situation looks like. Choose to enact your own role and just stand from the position of the observer who has to be detached in order to preserve and hold the frequency of objectivity, of being able to observe and naturally promote the objective truth, because during such a period when there is so much lie, deception, confusion, manipulation in the very sky, well, those who hold the truth and look at everything from a very objective perspective, and objective perspective naturally involves a multi-dimensional view of everything, because there's always more than one side and spectrum of any story. So during this time, staying diligent, rational and wise, and applying all the life experience that you have accumulated is going to be imperative. Now we start the week with a conversation of tension, where Mercury, not so long ago, entered the sign of Leo, holds a square with Uranus. Now, Mercury is the lower octave of Uranus, so basically this conversation of tension can play out as angry words, as conflicts, verbal battles, but where, the truth or whatever we feel or think in that present moment comes out suddenly, uncontrollably. This is where we might not be able to control our impulsivity. This is where we might not be able to embody understanding, compassion, peace, or just silence. For Mercury in the sign of Leo is basically the truth of your heart, and Uranus is the planet of shock, chaos, and surprise, and basically it leaves no choice but to speak the truth. So the best way to make good use of this energy is trying your very best not to get into a situation where conflict is possible. This might require, staying away from social media, even mainstream media, avoiding people who that are very, very impulsive by nature, trying not to get immersed into any drama, into any informational battle, and simply trying to stay as much detached as you possibly can from everyone. This square can also represent conflict, misunderstanding, or actually a clash of worldviews or ideologies between parents and their children or different generations, where Uranus in Taurus can represent an older, more mature generation who naturally protects values and traditions, all the symbolism of Taurus, and between a younger generation who would like to revolutionize everything right now. This conversation can also play out as very shocking, surprising, unusual news reaching us about, for example, something a celebrity did, one of their gestures, one of their speeches, their communication. It can also be celebrity gossip or news about royal family, royalty, because all of these have much to do with the symbolism of Leo. It can also represent, as in Uranus is the planet of objective truth, something being revealed, perhaps a secret, something that has been kept hidden from the public's eye about a leader, a celebrity, as in a person who embodies the highest qualities of Leo, as in the head of a state, a CEO, head of an organization, etc. But also individually, Mercury in Leo is very hot-headed, so we have to be really careful not just about our communication, but everything that we are willing to risk before we make, for example, a massive and huge financial investment or purchase something very, very valuable. We have to really, really think it through this time, because our instincts might not really lead us to the best course of action right now. And also, Mercury squaring Uranus can also represent a nuance of a Mercury retrograde, for example, where electronics just break down, internet connections, phone signals, anything that has to do with technology just stops working for no apparent reason. A satellite malfunctioning so that can cut out communication. It can also represent the electrical grid, power cuts, etc. So accidents of this nature. Of course, there is a supremely harmonious conversation called the trine in the sky. Mars converses this way with the Sun, and both of these planets are from their home signs, so both of them are very, very strong. And this is like a celestial infusion of courage, bravery, boldness, finding the inner strength to accomplish whatever you are guided to, whatever you desire. This is also a warrior aspect, standing up for yourself, protecting what is sacred to you, your highest principles, your loved ones. So this is like a massive fire infusion, which is definitely going to get stronger. We start to reach the second half of August, because this conversation is going to form a grand fire trine where Mars, the South Node in Sagittarius, and of course the Sun in Leo are going to form a fire triangle in the sky, which is a celestial infusion of fire energy, fiery spirit, courage, determination, the willingness to do everything, confidence, self-confidence, which is absolutely beautiful, necessary. It is a blessing. But sometimes a trine can also play out as a not so very favorable energy, because it all depends on what we do with it. And when the celestial blessing is courage, well, then we can alchemize that in overconfidence, a very uninspired courage where we just leap into the fray without considering everything. And naturally, that can be very, very dangerous. So this is one of those trines, this is one of those celestial blessings where we also have to apply diligence, because, a fiery impulse, an inspiration of boldness and simply not caring about any consequence can be, a huge blessing for someone who is naturally a warrior, for example, a fireman, a police officer, someone who embodies the military archetype, or, yes, of course, even for a rebel, a revolutionary, a troublemaker, a criminal. But, for example, someone who is born with a debilitated, very weak and suffocated Mars, well, on one hand, this energy is definitely going to awake them. It is definitely going to spark up their willpower, but they also have to use measure because, jumping into the fray is not actually advised for those people who don't embody the warrior archetype. And why am I actually insisting on this? Well, because even at the beginning of the week, Mars, again I say, in its home sign of Aries, making it super powerful, also in shadow, so that means anger, that means violence, that means Mars' way or the highway, and Mars is the god of war, it is the lower malefic, so it does have a lot of challenges, strife, conflict naturally attached to its symbolism. And it is forming a square, a conversation of maximum tension with Jupiter and then Pluto. Jupiter expands everything it touches, and we could see out how this Mars-Jupiter square was playing out and is playing out right now. So all the legal cases, all the legal conflict, all the political truth, corruption, all the news, all the filth being exposed and challenged, but at the same time individually, this is where whatever is happening in the world is definitely challenging our inner truth, our faith, our philosophies, our inner principles one way or another. But now when Pluto is directly involved in this picture, well, that is not a very good sign because Pluto is the higher octave of Mars. And if Mars is violence and anger and etc., well then Pluto knows no bounds. Pluto is totally oblivious to honor, so to speak, because Pluto is the superior expression of Mars. So Pluto is not alive inside of the human sphere. Pluto is absolute and it doesn't care about honor, etc. It cares about enacting the fated event. And if it's destruction that it has to enact, because it is the god of death after all, the lord of the underworld, well then when it's also activated by Mars, its lower octave, the lower malefic, it can mean a lot of turmoil, conflict, military action, violence. Like, let me give you an example, but I'm not saying that this is what's gonna happen. This is just an example. It's definitely not going to play out like this. For example, the Hiroshima event. Well, that was one of Pluto's masterpieces. That was how Pluto gave its signature to humankind. That was when Pluto showed astrologers, for example, astrologers of that era, of what it's capable of. Of course, it's not going to play out the same way, 100%, because that was a lesson all of us already learned, but that doesn't mean that there won't be violence, that there won't be hatred, that there won't be, everyone almost being possessed by their wounds, by their traumas, by their inner imbalances, everything that they suffered, because that is Pluto. From a psychological perspective, it is the deep layer of the unconscious mind, everything that was repressed there, so that will be the main motor for all the violence, etc. But at the same time, we must not forget that Pluto is retrograde, so it's pulling up secrets, long-term secrets which were held by fang and claw. They were protected, and it's pulling up the most delicate, the most dangerous, the most well-guarded secrets of centralized power, basically, because that is the symbolism of Capricorn. So all of us, it doesn't matter who we are and what we embody, are definitely going to have a very, very strong reaction to that. So this is a moment when secrets are being exposed, and the most delicate and the most well-guarded secrets are coming to daylight. And it's not just Pluto, Uranus is also responsible for this, and it is working almost as clockwork. And if all of this wasn't enough, Pluto is moving to 23rd degree of Capricorn, and that is extremely close to where January's Saturn-Pluto conjunction took place, so it reactivates that once again, and without a shadow of a doubt, the coronavirus, the economic and political disaster, the social disaster, for example, all the Black Lives Matters movement and everything it produced, well, that was the signature of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which took place on 12th of January 2020, a very rare, once 500-year aspect, and the last time it played out, it was 500 years ago, and it coincided with the Protestant movement, where the symbolism of centralized power, the Pope, was basically symbolically dethroned, because everyone had the right by then to read the Bible and the Holy Scripture in their own native language and their own native tongue and interpret it for themselves, which was massive, which was so revolutionary that it couldn't have even been conceived before that. So we are basically enacting the same theme, the same karmic cycle, so it is gonna be massive. But this is just the storm, the pressure cooker brewing and brewing and brewing, and it's going to explode around the 13th of the month, when Mars and Pluto square become exact. And then, as I said earlier, on the 16th, Mars meets Eris in the sky, Eris being the planetoid of discord, the female awakener, the revolutionary, she who fights for everything that she believes in, and she wants nothing but perfect equality, everything that belongs to her by right. And you know, many astrologers might not take Eris's symbolism that much seriously into consideration, but then let me tell you this. Eris is almost as big as Pluto, Aries is denser than Pluto, and it's further away from the Sun than Pluto. So basically, if Pluto is such a highly influential and strong power, then Eris is maybe a hint stronger than the symbolism of Pluto. But either way, this is astrological controversy, so I'm not going in this in greater detail. But anyway, Mars activates his sister, so then their symbolism become one. And what does that mean? Uprising, protest, people violently, restlessly taking to the streets and fighting for what they think belongs to them, fighting for their rights, fighting for equality, fighting for justice, basically. And since both of these square Pluto and Capricorn, expanded by Jupiter, of course, well, that means military action. That means that centralized power has to also stand up for its own protection to try and preserve the old order from being decimated in any way. May it be physically, as in the violent action, may it be legally, socially, politically, economically by people. So the conflict, the clash, is unavoidable. But of course, this is just the very first moment, because let's not forget that Mars is going to stay here for the rest of the year. So after it goes retrograde, it will return here once more. It will meet Eris once more. Then when it starts to go direct again, it will meet Eris for the third and final time. and the squares to Pluto are gonna be reactivated once more. So this is just the first case. 2 of such meetings are to follow until the very end of the year. But at the same time, of course, Uranus is standing still in the sky, preparing to go retrograde. So that represents that we are going to embody the symbolism of Uranus that much stronger. The rebel, the revolutionary, the freedom fighter, equality, humanitarianism, as an economical revolution, the change of our value systems, the principles and philosophies and the governing intellectual structures of the new paradigm. So when we put these 2 symbolisms together, Mars activating Aries and squaring Pluto, the war, the conflict, and then the inner Uranus being stronger than ever, well, that definitely means revolution. It can even mean civil war, and on top of this, natural calamities, explosions, fire hazards, the shaking of the earth, both symbolically and literally. And at the same time, Mercury is going to form a tight conjunction with the Sun from Leo. So basically that means a clarity, the truth of what's alive in our heart. Fighting for ourselves, fighting for our inner truth, fighting for what we truly believe in the passions alive inside our heart spaces, for the inner child, for our physical children, for the next generation, for their futures. So this just complicates things even further. And if this wasn't enough, well, at this time, Uranus is also going to sextile Venus. And individually, this is a positive aspect, this is a positive energy, because it can mean surprises in love, unexpected romantic declarations, gestures, support, good news, help in a very unexpected and surprising way coming from your family, your extended friends, everyone who you love dearly. It can also be divine inspiration, it can be divine downloads. It is a very positive and beautiful energy for artists. It can be epiphanies, sudden realizations. But either way, it favors collaborations, partnerships, alliances. Venus in the sign of Cancer is a very compassionate, empathic energy. So during this time, even unusual alliances can be formed because emotionally we are going to be that much more open, especially that if during this time we're going to be challenged by every single source of outer external reality, so to speak, well then all of us are going to need allies, all of us are going to need friends. No one wants to be or feel, better said, alone under such a sky. So, if alliances are going to be formed, that basically means power of the people becoming even stronger and even more interwoven. And at the same time, Cancer and Venus in Cancer can represent your culture, your ethnic distinctiveness, everything that is beautiful, valuable, artistic, deep, inspirational, a true value of your culture, of the place you were born in, of your family, ancestral heritage, etc. So you're definitely going to protect that. And of course, if all of this wasn't enough, towards the very end of the week, the Sun is going to hold a series of minor astrological aspects called quincunxes with Jupiter and Neptune. Then of course Mercury is also going to hold the same time of conversation with Jupiter, Neptune, Pluto. And quincunxes basically link together 2 areas of life which have nothing to do with each other normally. So these create shocks, surprises, delightful moments, humorous moments, but also awkwardness. And this energy can go either way. So it can also be the unpleasant surprises where they generate a lot of fear. Mercury quincunx Jupiter. Jupiter expands everything, so if there's fear in our heart, it will definitely expand fear to titanic proportions. But Neptune is illusion, it expands illusions, so we might not stand from a place of maximum clarity because everything around us is going to be very susceptible to interpretation. And then Pluto, of course, is manipulation. It is, the power of information, the power of psychologically or emotionally charged information. So either way, if we put all these quincunxes together in one boat, so to speak, well, this is a highly confusing energy where truth, half-truth, manipulation, deception, lies, but also valid advice is melted together in an amalgam of mediatic bombardment, may that be social media, mainstream media, any kind of communication. So that is a very, very stressful factor. Of course, there are going to be a number of people for whom these quincunxes turn into humor, laughter, funny moments, delightful surprises, unexpected, delightful moments. But collectively, well, chances are we're not going to be laughing at what's about to be revealed and exposed. Now, I know that this part seemed pretty much doomy and gloomy, but of course, depending on our own situations, on our lives, on our history, it doesn't have to be this bad for us individually, especially if we are at least somewhat detached from the global situation. As I said, that trine can be courage, and Mars meeting Aries in the sky personally, it can be our own protest against, for example, breaking a karmic cycle, eliminating the past, even rebelling against divine justice, which doesn't do its job, for example. So, the squares can definitely turn into motivation, determination, passion, the willingness to hold out, to survive, basically. It has to tune up considerably our willpowers, the inner emperor, so to speak, where we have to be our own leaders, we have to be our own protectors, the king of our own lives and destinies, especially at a time like this, because we, all of us, individually have to choose our destinies right now. One way or another, all of us have to fight for what we believe in, but this can be a spiritual battle, a battle that we hold maybe with our past selves, maybe with the karma of our current existence, because a lot of people are experiencing a lot of severe karmic blockages, and they naturally say, well, I wasn't a bad person ever in my life, so why is this happening to me? Well, because when we enter this world, we also take on the karma of our own families, the mistakes of our ancestors, etc. So even if we are like angelic souls, that doesn't mean anything. And the only way that we can actually rise above is either we somehow disown that karma, or by some action we try to balance it out. So this is a really, really good energy for all of that. Changing your destiny, changing your life, changing who you are deep inside, a psychological, spiritual, even a soul level reset. All of this energy favors that. But the requirement, you have to stay detached from everything on the outside, because you can't fight two wars at the same time. This is also a very good energy, even though it squares and it's hard for doing something very, very hard. For example, a work task or a personal project, something that needs a lot of power input, a lot of ambition and will, or for people who are naturally shy, because this is the sky under which they stand up for themselves and what they believe in. This is where it doesn't matter if that shyness is something they learned throughout life because of, their past or whatever, their education, etc., or if it's something deeply rooted in them, it's part of who they are. Well, this is the sky under which they can do the opposite. They can embody the sovereignty of their wills. For example, this is also fantastic energy for people who have very faint, weak egos. For example, people who were born under a debilitated sun, also challenged by other planets, for example, Saturn, Pluto, etc. This can simply spark their sense of identity, and this sky can make them realize that they have all the reasons to stand up for themselves, and that doesn't make them selfish. It is part of life. It is part of physical existence. And another positive expression of all this energy, well, there's one key word here: truth. The truth may be unpleasant to look at, it may be painful, it may not be delightful, but we have to confront it, we have to accept it. We cannot immerse into escapism, fantasy, illusion, make-believe for eternity. There has to come a moment when we have to see things for what they truly are. And this is one of those moments. But as I said, this is just the beginning. Autumn, the end of summer and autumn is going to be playing out this theme over and over and over and over again. So next week's sky is just an invitation to toughen ourselves up and to be ready to stand up for ourselves. May it be collectively, personally, psychologically, spiritually, work-wise, career-wise, it doesn't really matter. This is where we have to embody all our virtues, strength, but compensated by great wisdom and life experience, diligence, truth, honor, dignity. This is where we just have to be the emperors of our own lives and do what is needed for our kingdom, which is symbolically our lives, our destinies, and of course the futures that we are constructing. The new paradigm is almost here, so ready or not, this is where the deconstruction of the old order truly takes place, and the construction and the birth of the new simultaneously starts entering reality, at least ideologically speaking. So please be very careful next week. Remember that violence, assertive action is never the answer, regardless if it's physical violence, psychological violence, or angry words. We have to try to be honorable warriors and not just lash out at anyone. And also, this very strong Uranian activity also speaks about a lot of dangers and, Mars fire hazards. So we have to respect and pay very, very close attention to health and safety rules, because the sky speaks about the danger of accidents, unfortunate events, explosions, natural calamities. But whereas we do not have any control over nature, we do have a lot of control of what we do psychologically. And if we respect health and safety rules in everything during this period, well then that is like a testament to the sky that we are truly working with wisdom, and we can avoid a lot of accidents and dangers through this gesture of self-expression, where we express our wisdom and diligence. At the same time, because of the quincunxes, well, there is going to be a lot of conspiracies, fake information, fake news, deception, lies coming from every single possible source, even sources which were truly authentic until this moment. And this isn't that they wanna lie, this is where everyone is going to be so very confused that no one will hold the ultimate truth. So always seek the truth within and never without, especially under a sky like this. Well, thank you so much for listening. If during these complicated and delicate times you will require some spiritual guidance, advice, or a little bit of counseling, do not forget that our website 1millionnights.com is there for you. It is an online platform where you can seek out an advisor from a myriad of traditions and spiritual paths who would love nothing more than to offer their gifts to guide you and help you. Thank you so much for listening. Wish everyone a blessed and really safe week. Until next time, bye for now.